You know, October is coming up, and it's Pastor's Appreciation Month in October, and I know that it being May and all, you've kind of been thinking and praying about what you should get me. And I found something for you online, and John's going to put it up on the screen for us. So you can start saving up for that now. I thought you might, I came across that, I thought you might want to see that and probably maybe want me to wear that, I don't know. We're in Matthew chapter 11 today, verse 28 through 30. And, last week was, we talked about being sifted and the difficulty of that process. And we talked about the pain and the suffering that it often entails. And today we're going to hopefully move away from that and experience some healing. I don't know about you, but there are times in my life where I get so frustrated and things are so intense and so challenging that I just need somebody to come along, and it's like I'm wearing this really heavy backpack and somebody just to come along and take that and carry that for me. That's what I need. And I hope that today that is something that we can find, that if you are carrying around a big burden, a big backpack on your shoulders, that you don't have to be. You don't have to be doing that. Read with me Matthew chapter 11, verse 28. A great set of verses in here. Yeah, it would help if I was in chapter 11 rather than chapter 10. Come to me, all you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. And that's Jesus talking about Himself. You know, it is my experience that many times in life when we set out to accomplish anything, when we set up just to live our lives, that it seems like sometimes we're walking up this hill. And you know, I think we all recognize that it's a lot easier to walk down a hill than it is to walk up a hill. And when we're walking up a hill, I mean, the gravity is pushing against us, so it seems like it's more difficult terrain than if we're going straight or if we're going down. And it weighs on us and weighs on us, and pretty soon, for some of us especially, we get to the top of that hill and we're out of breath. And we're wanting that oxygen. We're tired. We're exhausted. You know, maybe we're all sweaty and yucky, and we're just ready for some relief. We want some relief from that. I can remember when I was young. Of course, now I eat that stuff up, but when I was a kid, I used to whine a lot about walking places. And I had the privilege to go to Western Europe when I was about 13 years old. And we were there for a month and went everywhere. Germany, France, Austria, Belgium, Netherlands, all kinds of places. And it was an amazing experience. But at the time, I was really whiny about it. If you don't believe me, you can ask my parents. I was always complaining. Either I wanted something to drink, or we had to walk too far. Because back then they didn't really do rental cars in Europe. You had to take a train everywhere, and then when you got to a city, you pulled into the train station, and then you walked to wherever you're going, like the hotel or wherever you're staying, or if you're gonna, we saw obviously a lot of things, and so you would walk to all those places. And so I was constantly whining. I was constantly tired. And I didn't appreciate fully the experience I was having until later on in life. And I mean, think about you. I mean, can you imagine going to Europe for a month? I mean, that would just be amazing. I think most of us would say, wow, that would be a really exciting thing to do. And probably because you're a little bit older and more wiser than, I don't think more wiser is correct, wiser than I was at that age, then you would look at that and you'd appreciate that. But I think that's a good analogy of how we are in life sometimes. That we're walking up that hill and we don't appreciate that sifting process. We don't recognize the value of what we're experiencing until later on. But there's this truth that kind of follows us around in the midst of all of that, in the midst of all the trouble. Because we've been talking about trouble a lot, and I think that that's fitting, because trouble kind of follows us around, it seems like, in life. That we just get over one problem or one difficulty, and then there's another problem just right there. And it's very frustrating. It's very depressing sometimes just to go from one problem to the next, and pretty soon you're just expecting it, you know. In fact, I think Stephanie and I on Friday morning, we woke up and it was just a peaceful, calm Friday. And I said, I just have this really bad feeling like something bad's going to happen, you know. And nothing bad happened the whole day. It was a great day. Really, I mean, I'm sure something bad happened, but I can't remember what it was. And it was overall a good day. And so sometimes we go looking for it. You know, we're expecting it. We've been shocked, shell-shocked so many times from the problems that we're looking for it. We're expecting it. And we forget about this verse. That His yoke is easy, His burden is light. What does that mean? What's a yoke? Well, see, back if you read the Bible at all in the New or early Old Testament, we talk about oxen. You know, it's like, okay, why is there oxen all the time? I mean, why don't you talk about horses or camels or something other than oxen? Because oxen comes up. Well, but that's because back then, in this particular geographical area, an ox was kind of like a big construction vehicle, you know, like a caterpillar. You can do a lot of things with caterpillar. You know, you can add little attachments on it, and they dig so that they break rocks, so that they pick things up. I mean, they do a lot of things, okay? But oxen were kind of like that. You know, you put your oxen on your cart or on your plow or different things, and you can accomplish a lot. And that's why we see the verse about the Sabbath, that there's a few exceptions to working on the Sabbath. And that's if your oxen or your ox falls in a ditch, you can go get him out. And you know, I don't know if you've ever stopped and thought about that for a minute. It's like, well, why can you do that and you can't make bread? Or, you know, why can you get your ox out of a ditch? Well, that's because Jesus was saying with that example that there are times when really important things call for our attention, and we've got to go and do those things. And so that comes up. But in this particular case, He's talking about the yoke that is put on the oxen, because the yoke is kind of it's like a harness. You know, if you've ever heard of like a rock climbing harness, or, you know, like a saddle you put on a horse, it's kind of like that. It's a little bit different, but it's kind of like that. And so when you put that on the ox, then you are kind of that's where the word harness comes from. You're taking that energy, you're using that energy and redistributing it. I mean, when I start talking about oxen, you guys are like, man, that is ancient technology. But hey, that was modern technology back at one point. I mean, that was amazing. I mean, think if you're doing it by hand. You'd think a harness on an ox was a pretty amazing thing. But anyway, you're harnessing this power, this energy from the ox. And it places a burden on the ox. Okay, that yoke does. The yoke places a burden on the ox. And what Jesus is saying here, though, is that His burden is light. He didn't say there's no burden. Okay, so don't misunderstand the verse, don't mistranslate it. He didn't say there was no burden. He said that the burden was light. You know, when you put too much weight for the oxen to pull, they can't pull it. You know, if for those of you horse lovers, you know, if you have horses pull something, you know, a carriage or a little cart or something, you know, they can do that. But if you weight it down with a whole bunch of bricks or something, it's going to be hard for them to pull, and that would be a heavy burden for them to pull. But a light burden is something that's easy to pull. I mean, we're still pulling, we're still working, but it's easy, it's light. It's not stressful and intense and crazy and all that. And so when I read this verse in the light of all of the Scriptures, you know what I hear? I hear other verses like the calm in the storm. I think of the song that was kind of big maybe 10 or 15 years ago about, you know, sometimes He calms a storm, but sometimes He calms a child. Think of that song. It's a good chorus in that song, because it helps us realize that how we perceive things can be as important as what's really happening in reality. Now, what do I mean by that? How we perceive things can be just as important as what's actually happening in reality, because sometimes we don't perceive reality very well, do we? We look at a situation, sometimes we overreact to things. You know, we have, I mean, surely I'm the only person probably that does that. Surely there's no one out here that overreacts to anything. I didn't think so. No one's raising their hand. So, oh, no, there is a couple of people. Okay. You know, we can sometimes take reality in and we kind of twist it or process it in the wrong way. And then what comes out of us is not very balanced. And that's why Jesus is drawing out an important truth for us here, that His burden is light. So if we're not experiencing a light burden, you know what that means? That means that the way that we're perceiving reality has got to change. That means it's wrong, right? It means we're not seeing things right. It means that we've piled a whole bunch of stuff on ourselves, perhaps. Well, never fear. As always, I have a wonderful solution for you. John's going to put it up here on the board. It's very simple. It's very easy to read. And I'm going to just talk you through each of these lines. And when we get through this process, you will be able to experience a light burden in life. All right, here we go. Okay, I'm just kidding. All right. But that's how it can feel sometimes, right? Sorry, Nat. I just threw your folder on the floor. That's how it can feel. It can feel like that. Whenever you wake up in the morning and you think about your life and you think about all the things you have to do, that is what happens in your head. All right? I know that because that's me too. Okay? So we need to, John, take that away from us. Let's look at something else. That's stressing me out already. All right, good. Thank you. Okay, so we need to change how we're seeing things. All right? We need to let go of that heavy burden that we're carrying, and we need to drop it on the ground, and we need to pick up a lighter pack. You know, let me illustrate this for you. So, for example, David and I, we like to work out. And in fact, I think David has surpassed me in the love for working out. And we decided that we got online and we're always looking for good new workouts and stuff on bodybuilding.com. And we found this new kind of military workout. And so basically, to sum it all up, I mean, I could tell you all the finer points of the workout, but you may not be as excited about it as we are. But basically, you put on this really heavy backpack. Like we took weights out of the weight room and we loaded it up in our backpack. And you strap it on and you carry it all around. We went down to Busick State Park and we just hiked all around miles and miles. Now, for some of you, that sounds like hell on earth, okay? And so I understand that. And it doesn't seem to make a lot of sense because for most of us, the objective would be to complete the course as quickly as possible with as little resistance as you can. But for us, we're a little bit dumber than most and we like to make it hard on ourselves. But this is a great illustration, though, of what we do to ourselves in life. That we pick up this huge backpack and we load it down with all these weights that we're never meant to carry around. And then when we're going up that hill and we start getting really tired, we start getting mad. We get mad at God, we get mad at our spouse, our roommate, our teachers, our parents, our children, anybody. We just get mad and frustrated and we don't understand why we're going through this hardship. We don't understand why we're having so much difficulty. And a lot of times it's because we piled all this stuff and we're carrying this backpack around. And we forget that Jesus told us that His yoke is easy and His burden is light. One of my favorite books, as you know, is Pilgrim's Progress. And if you're not familiar with the book, it's an allegory or a story that has a lot of deep hidden biblical truths in it. And it's a story about a young Christian who goes on this journey. He sets out from the gates of destruction or from the world or something. I can't remember all the titles. And he sets out for the celestial temple, which is like heaven. And he goes through all these trials and tests and things on the way. And at one point, he comes upon this huge hill, and it just gets steeper and steeper and steeper, and he realizes that the reason he's struggling to make it up this hill is because he's got this huge backpack on, and it's just weighted, and it's just full of stuff. And so, this verse comes up, and he's confronted with it, and he just takes the backpack off, and he lays it down on the ground. And then he's able to go up the hill and complete that hill so that he can move on to his next objective. And I think that story is a great picture for us, if you're familiar at all with that book, of how we need to live our life, of how we need to take a step back from the hardship and the strife that we place on ourselves and recognize that life's not as complicated sometimes as we make it. Our objectives are a lot simpler than what we add on ourselves. And so what does that mean exactly? I mean, maybe I can spell that out for you. When we add things to ourselves. Well, for example, sometimes many of us set unrealistic goals for ourselves. We say, oh, I need to make this much money. And so we spin our wheels and we work hard doing all these different things because we feel like this amount of money is what we need to have. Or we need to have this size of house, or we need to have this kind of car. Or we need to, have this comfort in life. Maybe your goal is that you just want to have a 65-inch TV and that's all you care about, and you just work towards that goal. I don't know what it is. But you set out and you have this goal and you put all this pressure on yourself to achieve that, and nobody ever said you needed to have that. Nobody said it would make you happy. Nobody said it was something you needed to do. You just somehow got this notion in your head and you just started off. And pretty soon you're going up that hill and you've got this huge backpack on and you're looking around going, what in the world am I doing? But we do that to ourselves. Another example might be sometimes we take other people's problems and put it on you. A funny thing that was said at the Building Dynamic Pastors Conference a few weeks ago, Jeff will appreciate this, was that, and that you won't think this is as funny as I am, and it's really not very funny, but it kind of illustrates my next point. The speaker, and I can't remember if it was Hosey Ballou, if it was, I think it was John Marshall maybe, said, not John E. Marshall, but his dad, Dr. Marshall, he said, the problems and the pain and the suffering and the difficulties of your congregation is killing you. and it's kind of a funny saying, but sometimes we take on other people's burdens. And sometimes, and we ought to, we ought to shoulder that burden. We ought to have this team effort going on. But sometimes we take too much and we just pile this person's and this person's and this person's and this person's. And pretty soon we're just crouched down when the roof is like on our shoulders because we're trying to fix everybody else and help everybody else. And we're just one heart attack away from seeing Jesus, And that's... Yeah, and I wasn't saying that to be funny. We get ourselves way too stressed out sometimes, and we've got to realize that God has a plan not just for us, but for our friends and our loved ones that we're trying to take care of too. And so sometimes we've got to take a step back from those burdens, from those difficulties, and help in a healthy way. And so, it depends on your personality. Some of us are like that. Some of us are fixers. We just want to fix people. We want to help people. We want to make it right. And we sacrifice to the point of collapse. A great illustration for this is when you fly on a plane. I was reminded of this when we flew to Orlando for the Exponential Conference last week. They always go through that thing of yada, 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 do this with your seatbelt, and if we crash, then you're going to get off on the plane like this, or, so on and so forth, and which, it's a serious, important message. You would think more of us would take it seriously, but after you've heard it 100 times, then you don't take it as seriously as you probably should. But one of the things that always catches my attention is when they tell moms in particular, but I think they're talking to both parents, but moms in particular, that you need to put on your oxygen mask before helping your child put on their oxygen mask. Now, I want some of you guys need to really hear me on this. Okay, some of you don't need to hear this. Some of you are just selfish and you only think of yourself, and so love you, bless you, but don't listen for a minute. All right, but for those of you who try to put the child's mask on first, I want you to listen. The reason for that, the reason for that is so that you can breathe to help them. All right, if you pass out, you can't help them, can you? You can't help them put their masks on. All right, so not only did you kill yourself, but you killed them too. But if you put your mask on, then you can breathe, and your brain has got enough oxygen to think rationally and reasonably to put their mask on. All right, so some of you really need to learn that lesson. It's important. You got to take care of yourself. My wife is hearing, and take your daily multivitamin. I harass her all. She's not in here, so she's not in here to. Oh, she is in here to laugh. Okay, all right. She was hiding behind Izzy. All right. I was going to say she's not in here to really enjoy the benefit of that statement. So take care of yourselves. Not to be selfish, not to the exclusion of everything else, but think about you and what your needs are. Don't just shove them under the rug and forget about it. You gotta make yourself healthy so that you're in a good place to help others be healthy. I wanted to do something, and this is, I know we don't do interactive sermons very often, but I want to do this today. And Zach's going to go around, and I don't know if he's got anybody else to help him, but he's going to pass out to you a little half sheet of paper. And if you have something to write on, that's fine. Just say pass, or pass the thing on. But I want everybody to write today, okay? We're just going to make a small little list, okay? And I know that some of you are like, oh, I don't know what to do. I can't do anything but listen and sit here. Yes, you can. It'll be okay. And I've got some pens in my backpack, wherever it is, if you need a pen, or maybe you've got a buddy sitting next to you that can help you with that. But I want us to write down a little bit. And here's what we're going to do. All right? Everybody has in their life a tank. All right? Everybody has a tank. Okay? Now we're getting all allegorical on you. Okay? Yeah. And I'm not talking World of Warcraft. I'm talking about an actual tank. All right? And in that tank is a solution. Okay? I don't know what that solution is, but salt water maybe, if you're imagining it in your mind. Or if you're, some of you like to doodle the sermon, that's fine too. If you're drawing your little tank there and filling it with some water. But that water is going to represent your wholeness. All right? Your fullness, your joy, your health. And I'm not just talking about physical health, but just spiritual, mental health in general, okay? All of that. That solution represents that, all right? And when your tank's full, you're in good shape, all right? You're feeling good, looking good, are good, all right? Thinking correctly about life. You're excited, you're full of joy, you have a passion to help other people. You're ready to set out on the great adventure of life. Okay, that's what it feels like when your tank is full. All right, when your tank is empty, you feel defeated, you feel depressed, you feel frustrated, you feel disappointed, you feel anxious, and you're making bad choices all over the place because you've gone nuts, you've lost your solution. And you're just on the edge of collapse, okay? So those are the differences, all right? And then there's everything in between, okay? Now, there are events, there are choices that cause those events in life that fill up our tank, okay? They make that solution rise. There are choices that cause events that drain that tank out, okay? So as you're drawing your little tank, or as you're just visualizing this, I want you to see that there is another pitcher out there somewhere that is pouring into that tank, and there is like somebody's hammered a hole in the bottom of that, and it's draining out. All right, so you got stuff coming into your tank, you got stuff going out. Maybe it's like a hot water heater for those of you, some are those crafty men that think in those terms. Then it's a hot water heater, okay? And you got cold water coming in, it gets heated up, and it goes out, okay? Maybe that's the illustration you need, okay? And if I didn't pick the illustration for your personality, sorry. Just, be creative and adapt it. Interpret it for me in your mind. Now, what I want you to do on your paper is to make 2 lists, all right? And as I'm talking, I'll try to share some things from my own personal life that maybe will help you think about this. But I want you to apply this to your life. Okay, so this isn't me, or this isn't like your spouse, or you're like, oh, you know what? I'm such a nice person. I'm going to fill this out for my spouse. I'm going to help them out today. I'm good. I don't really... Okay, don't do that. All right, just think about you and fill this out for you. Okay, see, I offended her now with the vitamins. She's going to take her vitamins right now, actually, because she remembered. No, okay. No, I'm just teasing. All right, so the first list, all right, I want you to write down all the things that fill your tank. All right, all the things that, and we did this, by the way, this is coming from the Building Dynamic Pastors Conference. Jeff and I did this when we were there. We made these lists, okay, so I'm not asking you to do anything that I haven't done. It can, yeah, and you can put it on both lists. That's fine, absolutely, that's true. So just think about that. What is it? Is it vacation? Is it your hobby that you do? Is it just doing nothing? For some of us, it's like the ultimate dream to go stand in one spot for 60 seconds and do absolutely nothing. Okay, all right? But just whatever it is, whatever fills your tank, all right? I mean, you know what it is. If you really think about it, immediately you can think, man, what do I really want to do right now? If I could do anything, what energizes you? For me, it's things like just being on my wife, especially being with my wife, traveling with my wife. I really enjoy that when we go take a little weekend trip, or we get, like last year we were able to go on a cruise, and things like that where we just get away and it's just the two of us. That really fills my tank up. I like to do woodworking. It's a hobby. I almost never have time to do it anymore, but that fills my tank. Playing World of Warcraft fills my tank. Again, very little time to do that. But think about those things that fills up your tank. All right, now the second list, as you might guess, those are for the things that drain your solution. All right, that drain your happiness, your joy, that just take the energy out. Those things that when they pile one upon another, upon another, upon another, upon another, just really runs that thing low. All right, think about those things like, just things that cause you stress, problems with family, problems at work, pressures that maybe you put on yourself. Maybe earlier when I was talking about that you realized, oh yeah, that's me. I put all this pressure on myself. And I have 90% of the things in my life I don't really need to be doing, and I need to declutter my life. And maybe that was you. Maybe that was your process. But whatever those things are, then put that in your list there. All right. Now I'm going to keep talking as you're doing that. But I want you to think about your list. And I'm going to guess, okay, I'm going to guess that for most of us, we have a lot more that is draining our tank than what we're putting in. And that's kind of the negative part of the American dream right there. That we are pulling more out of our tank than what's going in. And you know what? If you think about that, everything in life, everything, if it becomes deficit for too long, it brings destruction. If that's how you spend your money in the negative every month, you can only do that for so long until it's over. Emotionally, if you drain that tank out, you can only take it for so long before you snap, before you break. We have to have more, or at least as much as what's coming out, coming in. And I think that this illustration, this picture here, which has a very good practical things in our life, this is where we've lost track of Matthew 11, 28 through 30. Now I'm going to, after everything we've said, I want to read this verse again. And maybe it'll mean more to you this time. Come to me, all of you that are weary and are carrying heavy burdens, and I will give you rest. Take my yoke upon you and learn from me, for I am gentle and humble in heart, and you will find rest for your souls. For my yoke is easy and my burden is light. I want to tell you something. We can make lists all day long, but it will never get right until things between you and God are right. And you know why that is? It's because there is one truth. There is one right way that our life works. And every other way is nuts. It leads us to chaos. It leads us to frustration. It puts us on a roller coaster ride. All right? But that one true right path, that one place, we call it the will of God sometimes. But that one place, whenever God is right on us, and He is with us, and He is carrying us and moving us, that is the place that we need to find. And the only way that we can fill our tank is if we have an understanding from Him what fills us and what drains. Which, of course, that means that we've got to think about it right. And that's why the Bible talks a lot about renewing our minds. It's because we have to think rightly about something before we can act rightly on it, right? The only way that we can choose on the right things to put in our fill tank and to choose the right things that are draining us is if God is the one that's directing us. All right, it's almost like He's like the levee guy, and He's standing there at the levee and He knows how much to open or close the levee based on where we are in our life and what we can take and what we can handle. He's the only one that can do that. I've tried so many times on my own to figure that out. And I always come back to one place, and that's the cross. I always come back to that place where I realize that I've got to let go of everything. And I've got to let Him carry my burden for me because it is too much for me to bear. And so I believe that this morning there are several, maybe many, in our group, in our church family, that have put so much on their shoulders that they're about to snap. They're about to break. And I just want to open the door of truth, the door of light into your heart and into your mind and let you know that Jesus' burden is light. Psalms 62:5 says, "Find rest, O my soul, in God alone. In God alone, my hope comes from Him." And this morning you need to unload some things. There's some things that you're carrying around that you should have never picked up. And it's eaten on you like a cancer. To the place where you wake up, you're frustrated, you feel desperate, you feel like life is just blah. And it's not supposed to be like that at all. And Jesus is standing there, His arm is held out to you, and He says, "My yoke is easy, and my burden is light. Cast your cares on me, and you'll find rest." I'm going to have David bring the lights down just a little bit, and that's going to come and play. And I think we just need to take a few moments in prayer and pray about this and ask the Lord to review our hearts with us. To do a check on how we're making choices in life. To do a check on all the activities and busyness and all the things that we're doing and ask ourselves, is this what God has for me? Am I living my life the way that God has ordained for it to be? And if the answer to that question is not yes, then I want to invite you just to come right down here and talk to me, and we'll get it straightened out. Let's pray.